Hello there and welcome to Talking Point on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for making the time to join us this morning as we get into some conversations. The very last episode of Talking Point before local government elections 2023. I'm joined by my co-host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Keaton. It's wonderful Friday and we have a special guest this Friday joining us. He is the former Minister of National Security, former Minister of Works and Transport, and someone who one could argue is or has been one of the hardest working ministers that this country has seen in quite some time. Of course, I am speaking of one Mr. Jack Warner. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, sir.
Well, Mr. Warner, let's start off with the basic question of why now? I do remember when in the past we were seeking a comment from you, but at the time you weren't necessarily looking to be involved in politics quite just yet. However, you have made the decision to come now. So what is it about this period that made you decide I need to get involved again?
That's simple. Never in the history of this country has this country been as bad as it is now. Unemployment is at an all-time high. The economy is faltering badly. Crime is at its worst. Our young people, our brightest people are leaving the country in droves. And the list can go on, including, but not limited to, our poor infrastructure, our roads, our water. And if one really loves this country, one can't sit on the sideline and say business as usual. So I decided, therefore, that if not many will do it, I will do it by joining a political party and agitating for change. And that is the reason why I am where I am today.
Well, Mr. Warner, if you're saying that if one loves their country, they actually need to take some action, and your words just now were joining a political party, do you think that there would have been a greater impact should you have joined as the political leader of the ILP and that party in particular with other third forces that are rising and rising very quickly rather than going back to the United National Congress?
History has proven that this country has two political parties and that we are a two-party country, a two-party system. As good as some of the small parties are, they cannot make a difference with regard to change in the country. In the US, there are two parties, two main parties. A third was tried some decades ago and failed. In Jamaica, in Barbados, wherever you turn in the Western world, the true democracies, there are two parties. And therefore, having had the experience of the ONR, the COP, and the ILP, I felt that the best choice would have been to go and reintegrate myself with the UNC. By the way, I've never been a PNM, not even in their best days. So I don't see why in their worst days, under Rodley, I should become a PNM.
Well, Mr. Warner, I do have to ask, of course, there was a separation at a point in time. How was it after everything that happened with regards to the political differences in the arena when you left the UNC? How was it now to come back? Was the process difficult, or did the current executive of the UNC make it easy for you to return?
It was very easy for me, based on what Mrs. Prasad Visesa had been advancing for the past weeks and months. She had made a call for national unity on more than 3 occasions, and I felt that her call was genuine, and I responded positively, because at the end of the day, I'm saying again, that change can come either through the PNM or through the UNC. The PNM has abandoned its role, has abandoned its responsibility to the nation, and therefore for me the other choice had to be the UNC. And I have no problem with that. We have had our differences, and if one wants to live in the past and bear grudges, then so be it. I am not that kind of person. And thank God, so too is Mrs. Posadi Sessom.
Mr. Warner, we're speaking a lot about political parties this morning. You know, your very first response has spoken a lot about the current circumstances in Trinidad and Tobago, but we've swayed a bit more to political parties. Is this your move, your political move in coming back to the United National Congress, as has been stated, something that is more so personal in regards to against the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley?
I haven't gotten your question clearly. My apologies. Can you ask me again, please?
Is this something more personal? For example, is this solely to get rid of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, or is it?
Oh, that's easy. The biggest liability in the PNM, and in fact in the country at large, is Dr. Keith Rowley. Dr. Keith Rowley lacks the capacity and the acumen to be a good leader in the country. He believes that his role must be to cuss and quarrel and to mash up and destroy, and that is not how leaders today behave. Even his press conferences, I don't know how those guys make out to be insulted week after week in his press conferences, and sometimes twice per week, and say nothing. We have been warned about this, you know. We were warned about this by his Prime Minister, Patrick Manning, and we didn't take it seriously. And now we have paid the price, as it were, for not listening to Patrick Manning. Dr. Rowley is right now is not talking, is vexed, is angry with the Ethics Council. He's angry with the Integrity Commission. He's angry with Kama Posadi Sessa. He's angry with Monilal. He's angry with Jack Warner. And the list can go on and on. He has divided this country in ways unimaginable. Therefore, at the end of the day, my problem is really one of leadership of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister lacks the ability to lead this country positively.
Mr. Warner, whom are you angry with?
Not a soul, not a single soul. If I were angry with somebody, I wouldn't be where I am today in terms of trying to rally the country to vote against the People's National Movement and to support the UNC and the NDA. I am not angry with a soul. And believe you me, not even Dr. Rowley, because I know that if he could have helped himself, he would have. Also, he can't help himself, and that's why he is whom he is.
Well, Mr. Warner, you just said that you felt the need to have to do it, to have to make yourself available. Nobody else seems to be right now fixing certain things in the country, so you will do it. So I have to.
I'm not saying that nobody else. I'm saying nobody is prepared to come forward.
Right.
And I'm saying those small parties, as good as some of them are, they by themselves will not be able to do it. None of those small parties will win a seat. Well, and I say, as good as they are in some cases, simply because, I want to repeat, this is a two-party country.
Well, sir, I mean, you were former Minister of National Security, you were former Minister of Works and Transport. You've highlighted areas concerned in both of those portfolios. If successful in the next general election, where, if either or any portfolio, would you be undertaking?
In the first case, this is a local government election. It has nothing to do with portfolios, as it were, and it is premature for me at this stage to make a judgment for the next 2 years down the road.
But will you be making yourself available to take on that sort of work? Because I do believe a lot of the supporters are looking towards you with hope that you would be available within the next 2 years to perhaps take an active role. Would you be able to do so, or have you not determined yet? If
my health goes well, I don't see a problem. But I think I am not at this point prepared to say anything whether I will be able to or not. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, this is not a decision that I alone can make. Several other factors impact on that decision. And therefore, at this point in time, as I said to you, it's premature for me to say what the future holds vis-a-vis my portfolio or none at all.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Warner, you have stressed that history has suggested that Trinidad's politics is a two-party system, primarily the UNC and the People's National Movement. then what is that suggesting for the National Transformation Alliance, which is a third party, a smaller force, but has joined with the United National Congress in this particular election?
I think that this is the first stage to one of full integration. I don't think that in the future there'll be a situation where you have an NTA and a UNC fighting election. I think that, for me, the best policy would have been that we all fight as one, as the ILP has done, by going back to the belly of the UNC. And I think that what is happening today, the accommodation, is the first step, the first stage in that full reintegration politically of those two bodies.
And would there still be calls? Because I know, of course, the political leader, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, she already made the call out to all other parties to join with her. Not all of the other parties in the landscape have done so. But as time goes on, will those calls be continuing to try to rally all of the other parties that might be sitting on the outside to try to get them and their supporters in line to lead up as the campaigning continues to increase?
It will be the correct thing to do. It will be the sensible thing to do, because whenever the PNM has been defeated, has been based on a combination of all the parties coming together. And therefore, I don't see that changing at this point in time. The PNM is an institution of over 6 years, and therefore it is not easy to be the PNM by us fighting separately. We have to fight together as one to oppose the PNM, and if that is done, that would be the solution. Look, let's face it, we all have our differences. We all have our disagreements. But at the end of the day, we have to learn to bury those differences, those grievances, for the common good. This country is going through a lot of pain, and the pain is coming from one evil and one evil alone. And you can be angry at me if you want, but that evil is Dr. Keith Rowley. Now, even in his own party, people are afraid of him. In his own cabinet, they are muted. Now, how could you run a country so, where you of course, are Lord of all you survey, where no other view or opinion is considered? That is not the way countries are run. And therefore, that is why we have to, if my song has been personal, but we have to change Dr. Rowley, move him from office, and in doing so, if you have to move the PNM, then so be it.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Warner, there's obviously been conversations that have been brought up on political platforms as well as within society about your ongoing extradition battle. I mean, the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries spoke of it. You responded on the political platform, and the Prime Minister has raised it once more a couple of days ago with conversations with the Prime Minister. You said you're prepared for any battle. But there is a school of thought which exists that your coming back is a marriage of convenience. How do you respond to this?
In the first case, Dr. Rowley goes on a couch, his famous white couch in St. Grandi, and he talks to his subjects and who ask him some prepared questions for which he has prepared answers. They ask him a question about Jack Warner going back in politics, and he answered them very foolishly. In the first case, let me begin with the easier one. In the first case, in this election, Jack Warner is not a candidate. That is the first case. Secondly, my going back with Mrs. Persad-Bissessar cannot be based on a deal, because at the end of the day, my matter is in the courts, and Mrs. Persad-Bissessar and the UNC have no control over the courts of this country. Heaven forbid. My matter I have been a victim, as it were, based on an ambitious New York Attorney General who felt that their country should have gotten to host a World Cup in 1822 when I opted for another country in space. At the end of the day, FIFA is not a government institution. And if the US and Dr. Rowley want to use my supporting Qatar in 1822 as reason for me to be extradited, then I will fight them in court. And so far, I'm doing very well. Rowley and his government have employed 17 lawyers. 17 lawyers paid for by the state. The US hasn't paid 1 cent as yet, not 1 penny. But this country has paid 17 lawyers. 7 of those lawyers are Queen's Counsel or King's Counsel. One of them is an English firm, as it were, and want to fight Jack Warner. Now, if the US wants to fight Jack Warner, let the US spend the money foolishly. Let them pay, of course, the lawyers if they want to. Why should taxpayers be paying to satisfy the US ambition of getting me out of the country because I did not support them in 1822, in 2011? Why? Why must taxpayers pay for that? And that's my argument. So therefore, let me go back to the point. There can be no deal. This election here is a local government election. Kala Prasad doesn't control central government. Whatever happens, she cannot in any way at all assist me by helping me not to be extradited. Is the central government, is Rowley. And if Rowley and his government believe that their future can best be served by getting me out of the country, then let them go ahead. I have a good team of lawyers, I must confess, and so far we are doing quite well. The chief magistrate in June of this year said that, of course, it was wrong for what they were doing. And she chastised both the US lawyers and the Trinidad and Tobago lawyers. And we shall see where it goes next year, and the year after that, and the year after that.
Well, Mr. Warner, just on the topic of the local government elections, the Prime Minister has tied these elections to his administration's attempts to reform the local government system. Now, from where you sit, do you see any merit in the reform at all? Do you have any disagreements with the details of what the Prime Minister is doing? And would you tell your members, or your voters or supporters, to potentially not support this endeavor?
The biggest con job in this country is the one being postulated now by the Prime Minister on this thing about local government reform. Let me tell you, my friend, as I said in a meeting last night, local government reform has been on the PNM agenda since 1956. It was there again in 61. It was there again in 71. It was there again in 76. It was there again in 2007. And to date, they have done nothing to reform local government. In fact, as I said last night, the only reform local government got is from Mrs. Prasad Bisesa when she decided that all councils must have an office and must have staff and must have transportation so they shall be able to serve their burgesses. Nothing came before that. Nothing has come after that. And in any event, my friend, you don't need to have an election to have local government reform in the country. I repeat, the central government, headed by Dr. Rowley, can reform local government with or without an election. So the biggest con job in this country is one that is being put forward now, that local government is the be-all and end-all. Walk through the communities. Look at the garbage, the mounds of garbage that have been uncollected. Walk through the communities. Look at the clogged drains. Look at the cemeteries that have not been cut. Look at the recreation grounds that have been neglected. And the list goes on and on. Do we need reform to fix that? Do we need reform to fix those things? Come on, let's face it. I was in Tuapuna a couple of days ago, working with the UNC candidate, Miguel Lutchman. We are going up on first race. A guy is saying that he hasn't gotten water for 4 years. But you know something? He got water this week. They're paving all over the place, night and day. In fact, because they are paving like Lagahu at night, they paved 2 or 3 wrong streets as such. No, tell me, that's an insult to the intelligence of the people of this country. You can't treat people that way. And if you go through all the length and breadth of the corridor, you shall see neglect on a scale that is unbelievable. Local government reform can't fix those things, can it? Can it? You don't need reform to fix those things. Those are everyday affairs, and those things can be fixed. To do those things now, last minute, vai, I repeat, is insulting the intelligence of the people of this country.
Therefore, Mr. Warner,
I want to apologize.
Therefore, Mr. Warner, could you explicitly state whether or not you are for or against local government reform?
I am for any meaningful reform of local government. What I'm saying is that the PNM has not demonstrated one iota of reform in the last 50 plus years.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Warner, moving on a bit, there's also been expressions of mistrust. Polls recently in San Fernando City Corporation saw a number of individuals saying that they're not supporting the United National Congress because how could they trust the UNC? Jack Warner is back. Again, do you care to respond to such sentiments that are being expressed?
If they want to trust the PNM, who said that they're not going to shut down Petrotrin, and in 30 days' time, they did, let them go ahead. They'll pay a price for that. If they want to trust the PNM, where a prime minister has become extremely wealthy, and where the entire middle class has been decimated, that's their business. Let them support them. If they want to support a prime minister that says the rich has to get richer for the poor to survive, let them go ahead. If they want to do that and say they want to support a prime minister who plays golf 3-4 days a week when the country is in serious trouble, and that is trust for them, let them go ahead. At the end of the day, my friend, we shall either rise or fall by what we do or what we fail to do. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. We also cannot disregard that you still do hold a lot of support. It has been exemplified, and we have all seen the images and the media circulating. However, what does your return also suggest about the young politicians or the young members of the United National Congress, where at ACSO, your return, does that also speak to the caliber and quality of those within the opposition party?
You know, if I get the question correct, in all humility, I say that my return has been welcome because people have respected the quality of work I did when I was in government. No other minister of government has ever given 20 scholarships to the University of the West Indies. I don't know of anybody else who ever worked for $1 a month. I don't recall anybody working from 4 a.m. for their first meeting and going right until midnight. And this is in all humility. And the list can go on and on. My particular style has made me being loved and being welcomed by the rank and file of the UNC. Some, of course, may not like it, but this is quite natural. But many do. At the end of the day, all I'm saying is the way I live my life is the way that, of course, has caused me the greatest benefit.
Well, Mr. Warner, along that line, with regards to the young and up-and-coming best and brightest of us, you pointed out that we are losing quite a bit to the brain drain, as many leave after being educated here or potentially going abroad to seek out better opportunities. And in our own discussions, we've noticed a pattern where young professionals, young graduates aren't necessarily looking to get into politics. What would you say to those people now, as someone who has had such a long and storied career, both in an international organization as well as in Parliament, to get people involved again in order that we could replenish our political landscape with new talent?
The biggest thing we have to do, in my humble view, is to change our political system from first past the post to proportional representation or a combination of both. Young people feel disenfranchised, that they have no role to play. And those small parties as well, by the way, which I say some of them are very, very good, but they have no role to play because this is a first past the post system. And until we can have a system that can take in all the minds of those people who want to contribute to this country's development, we will not succeed. And I repeat, my answer to you, therefore, is that we have to change the political system to from first past the post to proportional representation or a combination of both.
But Mr. Warner, that feeling of being disenfranchised, isn't that further compounded by all the politicians not making the way, all the politicians either sticking to their positions regardless of their popularity or even making returns.
You're quite right, I want to admit. A politician from Diego Martin West boasts almost every day that he's in politics for the last 40 years. Now, for 40 years, what hope can you give a young person if for 40 years you have been in politics in the same seat and you have done almost nothing? Another one boasts that he has been there for 35 years, and the answer is the same. What can you tell a young person today that you're there for 35 years and you have done little or nothing? And therefore the system has to be one whereby a government must not spend more than 2 terms in office, and equally also, no candidate should be there for more than 2 terms.
Well, Mr. Warner, I have 2 more questions for you. The first one is, in your years as a politician, and coming back to 2023 now, do you have any regrets, any thoughts of regrets or things that you would have changed if you had the opportunity to do so?
Look, I have all kinds of regrets. And one of those possibly might be for getting into politics myself. I should not be. Sometimes I say to myself, I shouldn't be there. But then again, I catch myself and I say, if I didn't do it, then who? And I ask myself and say, at the end of the day, am I pleased with the fact that I have contributed in some way in sport, in politics, in life generally? And the answer is yes. I have no regrets. I have no regrets whatsoever. Those regrets which I have from time to time are just short-term, they're momentary, but they don't last. My feeling, my hope is that in the last years of my life, I can make some contribution to make this country a better place. Right now, we are on the precipice. In fact, we are beyond the precipice. We are in an abyss, and this country is falling to pieces because of a lack of vision, a lack of leadership. I make no apologies for saying once again, this is because of the kind of leadership the PM has at the moment.
Well, Mr. Warner, thank you for that response. That leads me to my last question to you, in the sense that you are the same individual this morning where it says, we all have our differences, but the thing is, we can move on for the common good. I think as recently as 2020, you said that Kamlamania is over, and that Kamla Persad-Bissessar will not be Prime Minister again in our lifetime. It seems as though, based off of everything that you've said, that you're now forgetting those statements and moving forward. In your honest opinion, is Kamla Persad-Bissessar the right person to lead the United National Congress as well as the people of Trinidad and Tobago, or is she just the right person against Dr. Keith Rowley?
You asked several questions here, but let me take the last one first. Between Kamla and Keith Rowley is chalk and cheese. Kamla has a level of compassion, understanding, empathy, which Keith Rowley never had and he never will have. So in terms of those two, it is clear-cut that she's way, way ahead of Keith Rowley. And the quicker the country comes to realize that, better for the country. Secondly, also, in 2020, and even before, I must have said several things, some of which I regret today, and some of which I've paid a dear price for. But because I've said so in 2020, doesn't mean that I cannot recant, I cannot repent, I cannot say that I was wrong, I cannot say I'm sorry. Doesn't mean that. Nothing is cast in stone. What I saw in 2020, I don't see today. And I'm making this quite clear. I may have erred, in fact I have erred. And I'm prepared to pay the price for that as I'm paying at the moment. So nothing is cast in stone. What I said in 2020 and even before can simply change overnight based on new realizations which I have.
Well, Mr. Warner, I must apologize to you, so that was my last question. Just going to slip one in very quickly before we bid farewell, and that is, what do you think your impact has been on the campaign trail leading up to the election on Monday, and what do you think your impact will be following the local government election on Monday?
Well, all the places I've gone to, and I don't think anybody has walked over this country more than I have. Definitely not Keith Rowley. He goes to Palo on his couch. He travels from St. Anne's in his car. The man wouldn't even stretch his legs. He goes on his couch like Louis XVI, talking to his subjects. Doesn't understand that Louis XVI lost his head and his throne. He will lose his head, but he will lose his throne. So I'm saying that I have gone through all the length and breadth of the country. The response which I have gotten from those persons with whom I've interacted has been fantastic. Everywhere I've gone, and I say everywhere I've gone, I've been given positive treatment, I've been given positive welcome and so on, as it were. And I believe in some ways this has contributed to the success of the UNC, to the success of the candidates that are going up. And hopefully on Monday morning, the people of this country will wake up and realize that it is time for a change, that enough is enough.
Mr. Warner, I want to thank you very much for joining my co-host Sean and I this morning on Talking Point. Thank you very much for the time and for the opportunity to have this discussion, and wishing you all the best in the final days leading up to the election on Monday. Keep well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
Stay safe, keep in good health.
That was Mr. Jack Warner joining Sean Michael Small and I on Talking Point this morning about, well, many different things, of course, the conversations surrounding his departure and his welcoming back to the United National Congress, as well as even raising the issue of his extradition case, as well as trust between the public and himself. We've spoken about the campaign. We've even spoken about whether the opposition leader is the right individual to lead the party. But when all is said and done, we will see the impact, the true impact of the results following Monday's election. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on Talking Point. When we return, we'll welcome our guest commentator for this morning, Mr. Nell John Bates. We'll be right back after this.
We exposed 5 strangers to KFC's delicious chicken to see if any time could be KFC time. And at the first bite, the party began. We repeated the experiment during the day, during business hours, on weekends, with sunshine, with rain. And it's confirmed. KFC's flavor makes any time KFC time. KFC, it's finger licking good.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
August 14th, Local government election night returns. Understand what's happening in your community. WESN presents our special election coverage with a panel of trusted citizens and context you will not get elsewhere. Special coverage begins from 7 p.m. on the premier platform for Caribbean content, WESN.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
This city can't hold me, my vibe's too high, and my heart it told me jump right now, you will touch the sky. Feel my love unfolding like a laughing flame. All who did not know me when not done, they gon' know the name. Million people coming down, dancing to a song. Love is life and life is love, blessings from above. Can you feel the love that's in the air? Well, if you feel it, let me hear you say, dancing, moving everywhere. If you feel it, let me hear you say, na 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 na, eh na 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 na. When I lost and can't find my way, is your love help me elevate? And when they try to block, I still come again. It's the way you lift me up, I could never give it up, no.
This is the way we celebrate independence. This is how it should be done. An event like this brings everybody out. All different race, creed, everything. This is our country. And how is the best way to celebrate our independence? With our national anthem. The vision I had 6 years ago, trying to make people happy. We started this event not to stop. This event must continue. And at independence, we could celebrate it together as a country. Even though the hard things, the struggles, we will always remain together as one people. Thank you.
You give me that energy. Can you feel this energy with a rhythm beating inside of my soul? This energy, you give me that energy. We feeling this energy with a rhythm beating inside our way. Take me to the river, take me to the sea. Wash over me music, wash over me. Take me to the river, take me to the river. Wash over me music, wash over me.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the last edition of this program before the final days of campaign. Sunday it comes to an end, and Monday morning from 6 a.m. polls open for local government elections 2023. Sean Michael Small, you look a bit surprised.
Does it come to an end? Because we've started the general election campaign, as much as at least Mr. Warner, before the break, he was willing to point out, well, this is local government elections.
Well,
let's not speak about the general just yet.
I'll tell you what.
But
kindly forgive me for being so rude and disrespectful in not welcoming Janelle John Bates to the conversation. Hello, Janelle.
Hi, good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Janelle, you just I believe you saw bits of that interview with Mr. Warner. Your thoughts?
I did see a bit of it. I was listening to it as I was making my way to the station. At the beginning of the interview, as I said, I was driving on the way down, listening to it. And I quickly glanced at my phone because I thought that Mr. Warner was reading a script. He sounded very stilted. I didn't feel like his responses were genuine. I felt like he practiced. The first question you asked him, why? Why did he come back? I felt like he practiced it in the mirror, to be honest. But he gave the politically correct answer, as you would expect from someone who's opposing the current administration. He said, the country is in a mess, basically all around, economically, crime, unemployment rates are high. And I thought to myself, I wish he had some statistics, because I don't know if there are statistics to support, for example, that the unemployment rate is high and so forth. But he gave the only answer I would expect from a politician of his years of experience, but I didn't feel moved by them.
Could we say that it is either in the position or in the instance of Mr. Warner, it's either conflicting or admirable? Which one is it that he's seeing, rather than sit on the fence of those who criticize, have decided to actually join the fight and try and make a difference with an active role?
On the face of it, it's an admirable answer. This is the answer I would give. I would like to get into politics because I would like to make a difference. And I do believe that a lot of Trinidadians often sit on the sidelines and complain. Armchair politicians go on Facebook, argue, but are not doing anything actively, whether on a community level or even on a larger national level to effect change in the country. So I like the answer. But I then, for the rest of the interview, I didn't get that impression because he seemed to focus a lot on his dislike for the Prime Minister. That is what I took away. Even you asked him why he, I think you asked him pointedly. And I believe he did say the biggest scourge, I don't know if he used that word on the country, was the leadership of Dr. Keith Rowley. So to me, it felt personal rather than because I want to assist or help or aid the country move forward.
Yeah, I found that interesting that it was so pointed. And he made it a point to focus on the Prime Minister.
Indeed.
And I would argue, if you want to complain about the government, the Prime Minister, for better or worse, is not the sole reason, right, that you could complain about the government. And on the show, you know, I myself have said there are a lot of worse people in Parliament that are government ministers than Keith Rowley. You could still have a low opinion of Keith Rowley and see where I'm coming from with that statement. But
I'm sorry, I'm just wondering whether or not there is a difference between what Mr. Warner was stating, because it comes across as personal, as you mentioned. But is there a difference between his position and what he's saying there versus any other politician in any other political party who are constantly praising or defending the political leader? For example, you don't expect Faris Arawi to say anything different other than excellent when questioned about Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's rating after 8 years in office. You don't expect that. And the same thing will go for a member within the United National Congress.
Right. So if the conversation surrounded leadership styles, fine. But this conversation is about local government election. Why are you here? True. Why have you entered the local government fray? And I can't say I entered the fray because I don't like the person leading the other side. For me, it should be, how am I going to assist the citizens, especially with local government, because it's about community issues. I did not hear anything from Mr. Warner as to how he thinks he can assist the UNC to provide better leadership on that community level. I didn't hear that.
And that's what made his answer to my question now, in hindsight, both interesting and frustrating. Because you're pointing us towards local government when I asked you, well, okay, what is your plans? Because you're not a local government candidate, so what is your plans for the next general, right? Because I assumed that was going to be the case. So I'm not going to ask you, well, you know, what borough are you going up for, something foolish like that. He did not want to necessarily commit there and steer us back to local government. But then the rest of his interview was basically treating it as though he's talking on a general election level. He's not talking on a local government level. There was maybe, when we got specific questions about local government, then he kind of gave specific answers to that. But for the most part, a lot of ire to the Prime Minister, who is also not a local government candidate. So if you are concerned about the local government elections, campaign on that if you don't want to go towards the general either. So the messaging there was a bit mixed.
Well, I think, Sean, we only have about 10 minutes left, but let's expand a little bit on that. It's something that you raised previously, and I also believe Janelle has raised this as well, that it seems as though we've treated, because we're down to the last 3 days, we've treated this local government election as though it were a general election. And many a times we've seen that taking place in the past, but it was very much this time a stronger approach.
I think this is 2025 chapter 1.
I was thinking in my mind it's a mock exam.
Yeah.
So we're testing out the waters. Because now we're seeing something that I can't say I would have seen before, and to a large extent, where we are seeing government ministers or yes, both MPs and important figures in both parties walking with their local government candidates. I don't believe I would have seen that on a large extent before.
Also an alliance for local government elections, because the framework or the structure does not naturally lend itself for an alliance making logistical sense.
Right.
So the concerns of them actually splitting their vote as opposed to strengthening and combining their position, it makes you wonder.
Well, then you support what Mr. Warner said in terms of he doesn't see that this sort of accommodation being the long-term goal. He said he sees as the first step towards everyone, the NTA coming back to the UNC, and I found that very interesting. I was like, well, I wonder if he had that conversation with Mr. Griffith, because he is saying what he thinks should happen. And to me, if Mr. Griffith is not on board, that's already a point of contention there. Suppose Mr. Griffith is like, no, I want to maintain my position. My NTA is a separate entity. Whereas Mr. Warner is like, no, we need to literally all just come under the UNC umbrella. You need to do what I do and disband.
I've been taking a look at the campaign on a whole. I've been following conversations with the Prime Minister. I've been following the United National Congress meetings. I have been following PEP, of course, NTA falls under UNC as well. Not much, if I'm being quite honest with you, in regards to the PDP. They're contesting Port Spain City Corporation. But I have realized that the PEP are focusing a lot more on local government issues in comparison, for example, to the United National Congress and the NTA.
Yes.
The United National Congress and the NTA have focused majority of the times on the issue of national security and crime.
I think that their theme is secure, TNT. Yeah. That's the word I see emblazoned on all.
The Prime Minister has focused on really local government reform. But if I am to be quite honest, and I listen to all those who speak on the political platform, again, I listened to a podcast a couple the nights ago where two individuals were promoting local government reform, saying that the PNM loves you. And that is my thing. I get the impression that even those who are campaigning for the People's National Movement, walking about, waving their flag, and to a great extent the candidates as well, do not know what local government reform is, what it entails. They're speaking a lot about, yes, it will help with the efficiency of services, how quickly services can be effected. Also, it will speak more so to the level of communication and the powers of a city corporation or a regional corporation or a council, but not so much about how we're going to get about there. So, Janelle, focusing on local government elections is a question I've asked many a times previously. Do you think enough has been done to educate the population on precisely what is local government reform and what it entails? We've been preached about the benefits. We haven't really been preached about how we're getting there.
Well, I would agree. I don't know if I've heard enough about the logistics of how we're getting there in terms of what legislation needs to be done. Maybe if that's what you mean, how we're getting there is not really something I've really heard. But then the question is that necessary to explain to the wider general populace on in these short campaign stops and conversations and meetings, how we're getting there? Isn't it that people just want to know what you're going to do and how I'm going to benefit? I feel like they're just really speaking to the people on their level. Remember, it's the whole population, all different education levels, and I think at the end of the day, people just want to know, how is it going to benefit me? I don't know if telling them how we're going to get there really would change their mind one way or the other.
I think it would. I think it's crucial. For example, you may have a point that these short campaign stops may not allow for so much time to go into all these details, but you do have platforms which have been utilized. You do have forums, you do have campaign meetings, you have cottage meetings, you have conversations. And I think people will care about it and it will matter. For example, great, it sounds all good. Then a couple months down the line, local government reform, all right, great. Let's say it's pushed through for implementation, we get there. wait, you've got to pay this increase in this price somewhere, or you've got to pay an increase in road tax. I'm just using examples. I'm not saying that is going to happen or that is there. I'm just saying, what if these things pop up all of a sudden and people are like, hold on, this is not what was told to me before?
Well, it wasn't told, but then I still say the responsibility is on, again, media to ask those questions. Pointed questions. How exactly? You said we are going to have more money for X. How? Maybe the populace or, may not think to ask that far.
If you can get me a member of cabinet on this platform, I would love to ask that.
Now, so I have praised the Prime Minister for giving us the, one could say, minimum or the least of, he's at least fielding questions. I've listened to a lot of the questions in his conversations. I could tell you, no, it's not pre-scripted, because some of those questions would put anybody in a bad spot. And there was one question in particular was basically implying where's our remuneration for party work, right?
Right?
So without necessarily explaining it, and it allows people to speculate widely and conspiracy theories. But with regards to local government elections, as Keaton said, reform, we don't necessarily have access to the ministers, and they don't always explain fully when they make claims. One good thing that happened last night was the Minister of Finance. He explained, at least for me, a little bit more detail on property tax, but it still left questions, right? And I understand that, okay, you can't give everything out in these national forums, right, where everybody's trying to get a question in, and you don't want to spend 2 hours I'm just talking technical details.
And it's the attention span,
Right, but this is where you educate the voting population by educating the party population, by educating the campaign volunteers and party volunteers or campaign workers, and the candidates. So if the candidates and the party members and the people working on the campaign don't necessarily have technical detail. It's not that they're supposed to say it everywhere they go, but you need to be prepared to answer questions when the population asks it of you. Because the last thing you want, and I know a friend of mine did this, either the last local government election or the one before, he had some very specific questions for his candidate, PNM candidate in this case, who could not answer them, and he basically was like, nah, you're a joker. Run from it.
Let me ask you, you have been on the ground, you have been working very hard, and again, that's admirable. But speak to us about some of your experiences, what, those you would have met whilst on the ground, what are they telling you, what are they saying?
I have to be careful, and I wouldn't say everything. I will be upfront and say I will not say everything that I have heard. But what I have observed, going back to the question of what people asking or giving people information of how we're going to get there, people are not asking that. What I've seen on the ground, people are asking questions actually beyond local government. Our job. What about crime? People have been asking broader issues, and then when you kind of, say to them what really, local government, they say, okay, it's true, but okay, here there's flood all the time, there's drain dirty. So people don't really care about reform, the right choice, or even security and tea. What you going to do about these street lights?
But if people...
I will say though, jobs, that's one of the things
and
that is touted.
People say our house.
That's one of the things the government is touting for the reform. They will be municipal jobs.
If people are saying, I want a job, and asking that question, doesn't that indirectly answers your question to Mr. Warner saying unemployment is very high?
True. No, but again, I still need a percentage.
Karen has questioned the statistics.
I need the statistics. I just said for me, I would like to see the statistics.
The implication is how the information is calculated might be flawed. So we might not have proper statistics.
Well, they always say you can manipulate numbers depending on how you analyze them.
We're going to have to take a break in a moment or two. But I will squeeze this in. What are you expecting on Monday?
Come back, I'll tell you after the break.
Not a problem. We'll be right back after this.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. World Steel Pan Day celebrations to take place today. 3 held for demanding money by menace. Port of Spain City Corporation worker murdered in Morpher. And internationally, search warrant issued for Donald Trump's Twitter account. Now for the details. The Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, in collaboration with Pan Trinbago, will commemorate the inaugural World Steel Pan Day on Friday. In noting the importance of this day, Minister of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, Randall Mitchell, said tomorrow and moving forward, the world will be invited into an annual celebration of the legacy, impact and captivating experience of the steel pan. Minister Mitchell also commended the contributions of stakeholder Pan Trinbago and the Steel Pan fraternity in forging the way forward. The theme chosen, From Behind the Bridge to the World Stage. The celebrations take place at the Woodford Square, Port of Spain today, Friday 11th from 5 p.m. 3 persons have appeared in court jointly charged with demanding money by menace from a Dabadi man. 24-year-old Joel Patrick and 24-year-old Lorenzo Julian, both of Diego Martin and Cavian Alexis, 26 of Dabadi, appeared before the Arima First Magistrates Court on August 8, 2023. Patrick was granted bail in the sum of $300,000 with surety. Julian pleaded guilty to the charge and was sentenced to 4 years hard labor, while Alexis was denied bail and remanded into custody. The matter was adjourned to September 5, 2023. A male victim reported to police on July 12, 2023, he allegedly received calls from a blocked number demanding that he pay the sum of $30,000 by the next day or some harm will come to him or his family. The following day, he allegedly received more calls demanding he pay the sum in 5 days' time. A report of the matter was made to the Arima Criminal Investigations Department, and a team conducted extensive investigation which resulted in the apprehension of 3 suspects. The trio was charged by WPC Johnson, attached to the Arima CID. Port of Spain City Corporation worker murdered in Morva, bystander wounded by stray bullet. It was a bloody start to Thursday morning for residents of Morva as a 35-year-old Port of Spain City Corporation worker was gunned down while walking to his vehicle. Marshal Charles was walking towards his white Hyundai H100 van at around 7:10 a.m. on Upper Rumi Lands when a silver Nissan Teda drove nearby. A masked man wearing a tactical camouflage jacket got out of the car with an assault rifle and shot Charles several times before getting back in the car and driving off. A bystander who was near the incident was shot on the left side of his lower abdomen. NEDTF officers visited the scene with Morva police. A district medical officer, Dr. Friday, visited the scene and made his pronouncements ordering Charles' body removed. Internationally, the U.S. Special Counsel investigating Donald Trump obtained a secret search warrant for the ex-president's Twitter data in January, unsealed records show. Jack Smith requested data and records relating to Trump's account, which may have included unpublished posts. After initially resisting the warrant, Twitter eventually complied, but missed a court-ordered deadline by 3 days. The delay resulted in the company being handed a $350,000 fine for contempt of court. The existence of the search warrant and the legal fight over it was revealed in court documents unsealed on Wednesday. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for watching.
August 14th, local government election night returns. Understand what's happening in your community. WESN presents our special election coverage with a panel of trusted citizens and context you will not get elsewhere. Special coverage begins from 7 p.m. on the premier platform for Caribbean content, WESN.
All right, welcome back to the program. Janelle John Bates, you have a couple minutes, just a couple, to get in your response to my question about your thoughts on what is going to happen on Monday.
Okay. I don't profess to be, you know Yesenia Gonzalez?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't profess to be able to see into the future, but my honest opinion, and I'm only saying it because I should be back on Tuesday, is that I believe it will remain the same. I believe it's going to stay 7-7 more or less. I don't think there's been, I don't know if we've been able to sway, anybody's been able to sway the undecided. I don't believe there's been an undermining of either base. I think it's...
So do you think 7-7 could be seen as a win for the UNC or for the PNM?
I think it depends on how the 7-7, so you could have 7-7 as in you can win your 7 boroughs, but in terms of did you lose any votes, so you might have won, but did you lose ground in your seat?
So whether or not we expect people to actually come out and vote.
The details will count at that point.
And it's also whether or not we expect people to come out and vote on Monday.
Yes, you might stay 7-7, but now we only had 20% voter turnout.
Yeah. Well, with regards to that, do you think that, because again, people are at least willing to speak. It seems as though on both sides, it's more about national issues than anything, right? But if they're that passionate about it, they might be willing to vote, even though technically what they're voting for is not what this election is. They want to vote for national issues. Do you think the turnout is going to be low? Because that also might be a message sending to one or both parties.
I have not done a poll, okay? Again, I'm not Nigel Henry. My very unscientific poll talking to people in my sphere.
This is an opinion show.
As opinion. So unscientific is that I don't believe there's going to be a high turnout. I believe if we maintain the same 33% or third of the population, that's good.
And I like your comment on you don't think the middle has been swayed, because I think we haven't really heard or talk about that. And it does make me think, yeah, there's a good possibility you might be right. And if that's the case, then yeah, 7-7.
I have a feeling that we might all be surprised on Monday.
You think so?
Mind you, I had a feeling I was going to win the lotto and that didn't work out, so who knows?
Well, actually, yes, let me flip it on you all. You're putting me on the spot. I want to hear both of your predictions so we can see, and we could put a bobby on it to see who got the closest to the, to the results. Keaton?
If I'm being honest, I think I'm swaying with what you said. I think it is going to be a tie, and that is why, in my opinion, if it is a tie, it works out more so in the favor of the United National Congress rather than the incumbents. Well, again, it depends on the corporations. We have to wait to see. But if in any way at all it remains a tie, I think that works out more favorably for the United National Congress.
Maybe for the United National Congress, and I ain't forget you, Sean, I want your opinion. But what does it say about the leadership of Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar? Do you think it will then again add ammunition for those who in the past tried to undermine her leadership or take over her leadership with a tie, which is not a win really, adding to all her other non-wins? How does it work out for her for being the leader in 2025?
I don't think they're going to actually use this local government election to judge on her leadership. Because if that were the case, we would be using the 11 previous elections of which...
well, that's what I said. Where's the straw? Would this be the straw?
The straw will be after 2025. Because...
It seems so, yes.
Yeah, to me, that is where they're going to really judge whether or not she should be her leader. And they've judged it in the past. But come 2025, you could only make those decisions following the election.
I just want to say quick, yes, I think they're gearing up for her general campaign as her being the leader. So to switch gears, I don't know, they have 2 years to do so if they decide to do that, but I don't necessarily see that because she seems to have too much support. I don't know why, right? Every time Jack said that, you know, she's so much greater. Listen, I can understand if you think she's a little bit better, but
I said she was nicer. That's what I took away. She's better because she's nicer, which I don't know if nicer is really a
for governance, that could be a liability. So, but hold on, I need to answer what she accuses me.
Yes.
Right? So here's the thing. I don't think it will be a tie.
Ooh.
I think that those who will vote, and we might have less voters, but they're impassionate enough that something, maybe not that decisive, but I do think that the tie would be broken. Now,
which way, Keith?
I would say that most likely, I believe it would be the PNM gaining a little bit of ground,
you're
right?
confident.
However, no, because I won't be surprised if that is wrong, and I won't be surprised if it goes the other way. It somewhat all depends on who has a bit more potentially, I guess, momentum within their base.
I mean, I have come to understand and learn that getting voters and the whole election day machinery, at least on the PNM side, is a critical thing. And when if your election day machinery is on points, someone always tells me this story about somebody winning, their sister went up and won by 25 votes, which was like the last 5 cars coming into the polling station. So getting everyone out is a very critical thing. So you might be right. And it might come down to that, who has the better machinery.
It has been pointed out that the PNM's official structure works better. Is better practice, is better established. And we're not talking about spin doctors, we're talking about the actual work.
I would not necessarily say there's structure. I disagree with you from that aspect. I would say on the face of it, it seems to work. But when Mr. Warner suggested that even within cabinet, there seems to be some splitting, he is hinting at something of which has been spoken about quite commonly in recent times.
True, but...
I don't think the structure is necessary.
But would we want to undermine or make the structure fail, I lose the election to rectify?
It's not that. In any administration, there will be people jockeying for position because the guy at the top is not going to be there forever, right? And Dr. Keith Rowley is in his 70s. I mean, look at Biden, right? Do we expect him to be there for 2 more terms? No. So everybody...
Well, 1 more.
Right, maybe 1 more, maybe. If I was him, I might, because he'll be 75. He'll be 75 in the next general, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, I do know one thing. I do know that the PNM keeps their stuff out of public eye, and I do know that the People's Partnership had to fire how many cabinet ministers? So pot could be calling kettle black a little bit there. Again, you yourself pointed out, he had pointed things to say about his now new best friend, old best friend.
I would love
one counter to that. And in no way am I defending having to fire ministers. But you saw a lot more decisive action than lagging, for example, the cases with Marlene McDonald.
No, I know that.
There's lagging with certain people, but I wouldn't say the PNM has any lagging in terms of being able to fire people.
So why bring back Darrell Smith?
Well, is he really brought back? He's shipped off. He's not in a central government.
No, but that was bad.
You would call that as a being back?
No, but it's bad. He's eating our food. That's what it
He's
is,
from
right?
eating our food.
No, but the difference is
I wonder if that's down to a
the
boys club.
The PNM has one or two
That's
things.
I always wonder if some of these things are gender
All right,
decision.
hold on. Before we continue, I think I'd like to open up.
Yeah, okay.
I thought the lines were open.
The lines were not open. We didn't open the lines. The
Okay.
lines are now open. I think we were able to clarify and confirm that TSTT has given us connectivity this morning. So therefore, we are in a position which we can open up the phone lines. Call in and join our talking point this morning. Share your thoughts and opinions with us. We did have that interview with Mr. Warner, if you'd like to comment on that. But we're also discussing a local government election on Monday, if you would like to share your thoughts or your predictions with us.
Last chance, folks, before the election, last chance of the week.
I want to hear some predictions.
Get your points for or against in now. Let the nation hear you.
I want you should do a snap poll with just give us your predictions.
The only nation in the station, as one famous individual once said.
That's right. That's right. Yes, that's right. Only in WESN is TNT in HD. You see.
You sound like Marshall Montano many years ago, man.
Yeah, we just a little too late. We could have done a collaboration. I don't know. Monk is not as workable for a TV brand, I think.
Monk?
Yeah.
Well, there was a whole TV show called Monk.
Anyway, let's take this caller on the line with us. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Three. I don't know how to term it, but good morning. Listen, I am in a predicament here, and I don't know if you all could clear it up for me. Let us start with one thing. The opposition leader and the UNC is touting a lot about this inheritance tax. All right? Now, she does not state where she got that information from. She didn't give any details, how and when it will be implemented. On the other hand, you have the finance minister claiming or stating that he knows nothing about the inheritance tax. Now, the quandary I'm in is this. According to what the finance minister states, if we look at history with the Petrotrin refinery, it was stated that they will not be closing down the refinery, only to find that the refinery was closed. And he coming to state now that there's been no inheritance tax. I mean, this is where I find myself. Who to believe? Okay, I don't know if you all could put
I understand your question, caller.
in some direction.
Yes. We will try and answer your question, because I know that the Prime Minister also said that if anyone is suggesting that under his administration property tax will be back, it's a lie. And, well, it's part of local government reform. So I understand your conundrum, but guess what? I think we're in a similar position as you. We ourselves do not know. We can only take the words of the Minister of Finance, who has said it is not on their agenda.
Yes.
Right? So what can I say? Maybe not budget 2023, maybe budget 2024, or maybe not at all. Maybe it wouldn't be back. But buckle up, put on your seatbelt, fasten make sure you're braced on really well, because the next 2 years are going to be interesting. We have another caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Lady.
Morning.
Good morning.
To that question of winning the local government election, you look at the broader sense that there are 14 corporations, and you're looking at the last thing was 7-7. I am not looking at it like that. I am looking at it in terms of how many candidates within, because for instance, for San Fernando can the PNM can retain the San Fernando Corporation, but have less seats.
Yes.
UNC have 3, they can get 4. That type of thing. So, but however, seeing that the PNM is the only party that was able to field a full slate in all the corporations.
141.
And everybody else had to, for instance, if the UNC had to join up, and I think in terms of the amount of candidates that will win their burgesses, I think the PNM will have a slight edge on
in this election. So I seen them having more seats, winning more council seats. However, I want to say one other thing. You all were talking about local government reform, and I am surprised that you all have not asked that question to Mrs. Bates, who has been on the ground and who is a member of the PNM, about local government reform, because she is actively on the ground. So I think that question is sitting for her to answer, for her to state what is local government reform as a PNM member who is working in this election. And Mrs. Bates, I don't think I'm not going to ask you to answer that question that I asked you last week, because this election time. So next week when you come, the judge alone try.
Oh, the judge alone, right? Yes.
So have a good weekend.
Thank you very much, caller. And I could appreciate the reasonable argument of which you've put forward in regards to the 141 candidates.
Yes. Actually, it reminded me of an artist. We have another caller?
Yes, we actually do.
Because I was going to... Okay.
No, I apologize. Pause on that point, though. Let's take this caller from point 14 first. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
You know, I'm having trouble understanding how you all could equate the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister saying that they're not closing down Petrotrin as casually as Kamala Prasad is saying inheritance tax. You find it to them some the same?
I'm sorry, caller.
You
I'm a bit confused.
So?
Well,
Keaton?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
He's saying that they are not analogous, but, well, caller, tell us, why do you see them as being different?
Because they're not.
In what way? Please elaborate.
I don't understand.
All of you had tertiary education, and that's how you will comprehend that.
Well, caller, let's put it this way: if we didn't have an example of the government making definitive statements and then changing their mind afterwards, we probably would not have put the opposition leader's claims of inheritance tax ahead of the finance minister's claims of not having it.
And actually, I want to clarify and say I held no position on that point. I made no comments on that point. That's one. So,
caller, I did not understand your question, and now that you've added context.
Let me butt in here before you take my little minute.
Sure.
You told your wife told you that she is going to a party with you, and then she suddenly changed her mind. You know. But you're going to get married and she ain't show up. Is the same thing?
Caller, I understand why you are saying they're not the same because they're on different levels of severity or consequences. But I am asking you, why would you say that?
You put on your wedding dress and go.
No,
but caller, I hear what the caller is trying to say, but I don't. He has not convinced me now that they are not on the same severity level. They both have economic consequences.
I think your analogy, unfortunately, also is not on the level of the...
You were just the one to say so.
No, well, caller, I would like to respond. So thank you very much. I'm going to respond to you while we take this other call. But it's simple for me. I get what you're saying in terms of the economics. Fair enough, fair point. They're not necessarily the same. I think the point that is being made is that certain things have been said in one time, in one form, and then it's reversed all of a sudden. So you're making certain promises. For example, I think Petrotrin was a matter of 6 weeks from it being said we're not shutting it down to 6 weeks later we're shutting it down. So whilst you're arguing, listen, there are two different things in terms of the components, in terms of the aspects. It is very difficult when you have the government saying one thing and then 6 weeks later changing it.
Yeah, I
think it's a matter of trust and integrity. Now, I didn't take a position one way or the other, but with the caller's insistence that it's not the same, to me, the consequences may not be the same, but it speaks to, can you trust your leader and should I vote for somebody?
But more importantly, the caller is saying it's like the difference between a date and a wedding. I'd say no, it's like the difference between an engagement party and a wedding.
Okay,
they're not the same, but they still have important consequences.
Good morning, caller from Shagonas. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
I don't know why political experts believe their duty should be to try to predict who will win the election. What they should really be doing is finding out what the candidates will be doing to improve discussion with Jack Warner proved that Jack Warner have not shown any way within the law how he going to improve the lots. And his history showed that he has no regard for law and order. He will use public funds for his friend and his partners. And he talk about proportional representation. And people don't find out a major problem with proportional representation. It makes weak government. And when you have weak government, you have a sort of negotiations for power. And you end up with decisions that are not in the public interest. I don't know if you remember, I mentioned this some time ago, where in America you had this negotiation to get a man vote. And he had not knew any, so that a river wrong way where he lived, he wanted a bridge over it, and then ended up being the infamous bridge to nowhere. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
No, Professor, but I do look forward to your commentary next week.
But I was going to say, although he said, we shouldn't be asking who would win, I still wanted to get the answer from him to that. Who did he think? But I would say that
he wasn't going to answer.
When the previous caller, I don't know how many back, was indicating that we shouldn't focus on the 7-7 so much, but on the seat gaining and losing ground. That is true. Someone has asked me that question. I did indicate to them I did think the PNM could lose and some of the seats in one borough, but gain some of the others. And I read an article where somebody broke it down mathematically because they have fielded candidates in all 141, but the other parties haven't.
Yes.
It would redound to the benefit of the PNM, and they worked it out scientifically.
Yes,
Why
yes,
so?
that article was a
so let's
ago, yes.
pause on that point. We do have another call on the line with us. I think we're going to extend the phone call openings just for a bit longer since we took so long to open up this morning. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, good people.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let me first of all say to the last caller that I don't know that he has the evidence that Jack Warner took money, government money, and gave to his family and friends. And so I think that is not only libelous, but it's also slander. You may say what you want to say about Jack Warner, but I think the reason why we are all focused on him this morning has to do with the fact that he is a game changer. And in the context of this local government election, albeit it is intended to be an election where there are meaningful changes to take place, Jack Warner is the game changer in this election. Let me also say to you this morning, by way of, if you want a snap poll,
yes.
I fully agree and endorse the sentiments of the penultimate caller who said that the elections will come down to that the corporations may remain 7-7. But inside those corporations, both parties, both the mustard and the ketchup, will lose seats. I want to put that down as a possibility. In fact, I think, based on the information I have at this time, Port of Spain may see some new faces other than the PNM as they have dominated it for the last two local government terms. So in more ways than one, this is perhaps a very, very good exercise it's a nice dry run for 2025. If we go to that full term, I sense we may not go. But then again, Dr. Rowley will never do anything that Mr. Manning did, which is to call an election early. So he suffers from Manningitis, even though he has been in charge of everything, including the presidency, the judiciary, the police, and indeed the executive. I mean, Dr. Rowley is the closest
now,
thing
the caller caution.
a monarch in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution this morning.
Did he say that Dr. Rowley wouldn't do things that Patrick Manning has done?
Yes.
Referencing calling a snap election.
But I would also want, please, the caller said that Dr. Rowley is in charge of the judiciary. I would caution him against making those statements that speak to hints at undermining the independence of the judiciary. I would. People have said he's in charge of the police and all that, but I would not bring the judiciary into that equation at all. I would caution against that.
Also, I would just like to point out a fair amount of legislation brought by Dr. Rowley seems to have been legislation that was originally brought under Patrick Manning. So he has done things that Patrick Manning has done.
Is that because he has not had any ideas of his own, or is it because the legislation on the table really is what is best or suitable?
Possibly both.
Possibly both.
Possibly both, to be fair.
All right. That's
I have
it.
no comment on either.
Do we have another caller?
No, I think we've... All right.
Okay.
We've closed the phone lines, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Again, a pertinent point raised by the caller from San Fernando. There may be a 7-7 result on Sunday, possibly. But if you take a look at the actual seats within those corporations, they may change, they may sway.
The devil is in the details, right?
Nobody knows for certain.
Yes.
Nobody knows for certain. Again, we may be full of surprises. For example, play the lotto tomorrow. You never know.
Guys, before we go though.
Yes.
Happy World Steel Band Day. Today is World Steel Band Day.
It is
as declared
indeed.
by the UN.
It is indeed. I think it's...
And I think that's an important day, a historic occasion for that international recognition of the importance of steel pan for sustainable development goals.
Well, my only thing is this. There was so much opportunity with this instrument that came from here, but similar to Calypso and Limbo, I don't think the international community really acknowledges that we are the country of origin of these things.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot more opportunity now that has been created by the United Nations declaring it World Steel Pan
And it was
Day.
indicated in there very clearly that it originated in Trinidad and Tobago,
And
in the resolution.
very much so.
Hopefully.
If you take a look at any interview or documentary, and I've sifted through quite a number in recent times regarding the steel pan, it all comes back to Trinidad and Tobago.
As it should.
So, indeed, happy World Steel Pan Day. Janelle, I hope you can join us for Pan on the Avenue in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, Pan on the Avenue. I think I went the last time they had it. I did attend.
Yes.
So
I love the steel
I should
pan.
be there.
I absolutely love the steel pan. Shawn Michael Small, that's a wrap for now. Monday it shall be.
Monday shall be all of the excitements. So, tune into WESN for the election coverage. Decision 2025, Chapter 1. That's what I'm calling it. That's what I'm calling it.
That's a theme to go for. Janelle John Bates, thank you very much for your presence once more.
Thank you for having me.
And for sharing us your thoughts and experiences. We look forward to seeing you next week, Tuesday.
God willing. I'll be
Hinting
here.
at a special edition, a special episode of Talking Point next week, Tuesday morning, starting from 8 a.m., ending, well, possibly before, after 11. We'll see how it goes. But, yeah, we're going to do a marathon that morning. In fact, we already started stocking up on our coffee supplies for Shawn Michael Small, so he should be in good hands. Yes,
I haven't.
No, we're stocking up for you, man.
I think oh, okay, because I'm out, so I wasn't prepared.
We're prepared.
A marathon?
We're preparing for you. A marathon.
I'm more like a sprinter. Not really. I'm neither a sprinter nor a marathon runner. So,
anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Keaton Shaw. This has been Talking Point. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Do have a great weekend ahead. May it be a safe one. I can only hope so. But please, I beg of you, your civic responsibility, your civic duty. We've all heard these terms before. But do your part in making Trinidad and Tobago a bit sweeter, a bit brighter. Whatever your decisions, whatever your choices, cast your ballot on Monday. Only you could bring about change.
So what are you telling people to do? Go vote!
Only you can bring about change. We'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I am Rondell Donowa, and you are watching WESN, the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white, and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
August 14th, local government election night returns. Understand what's happening in your community. WESN presents our special election coverage with a panel of trusted citizens and context you will not get elsewhere. Special coverage begins from 7 p.m. on the premier platform for Caribbean content, WESN.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
This city can't hold me, my vibe's too high, and my heart it told me jump right now, you will touch the sky. Feel my love unfolding like a laughing flame. All who did not know me when not done, they gon' know the name. Million people coming down, dancing to a song. Love is life and life is love, blessings from above. Can you feel the love that's in the air? Well, if you feel it, let me hear you say, dancing, moving, moving everywhere. If you feel it, let me hear you say, na 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 na, eh na 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 na. When I lost them, can't find my way. Is your love help me elevate? And when they try to block, I still come again. It's the way you lift me up. I could never give it up, no.
This is the way we celebrate independence. This is how it should be done. An event like this brings everybody out. All different race, creed, everything. This is our country. And how is the best way to celebrate our independence? With our national anthem. The vision I had 6 years ago, trying to make people happy. We started this event not to stop. This event must continue. And at independence, we could celebrate it together as a country. Even though the hard things, the struggles, we will always remain together as one people. Thank you.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
This family of 8 was forced to flee when water crept into their home.
We can't live here. The floor's been lifted here and there. We have a lot of small fish around here. There are several schools of them that have been around here now.
The deluge comes after Storm Hans hit Norway at the start of the week, forcing road closures and disruptions to public transport. On Wednesday, a dam in the country's south partially burst after water forced its way through. Authorities have warned of more flooding ahead as water flows towards lower-lying coastal regions.
I'm standing here looking at the river, and it's just getting higher and higher. We must be united and listen to what's being said by experts so that we can get through this crisis.
It's among the worst flooding Norway has seen in recent years. According to the Oslo-based Centre for International Climate Research, extreme weather events like the torrential rain seen this week will become more frequent as the climate warms.
Next to the latest in Ukraine, a Russian missile strike on civilian targets in the west of the country has killed an 8-year-old boy. That's according to a Ukrainian prosecutor. In the meantime, there were explosions reported in the capital of Kyiv this Friday, prompting an air raid alert. Fragments of a missile crashed into a children's hospital in the capital. We get more on that from our correspondent in Kyiv, Emmanuel Chaz.
We've heard the explosions at around 10 a.m. this morning in Kyiv. At time, there was an alert ongoing, but you know, here in the capital, people tend to get on with their lives. Not everybody is taking shelter. People have to go to work. They're trying to continue having a normal life despite being in a country at war. And sometimes it's quite easy here in Kyiv to lose the sense of danger because we're not on the front line, because such attacks don't happen on a daily basis. There are air raid alerts literally on a daily basis, but we don't have explosions every single day here. And this is why this morning, when the explosions occurred, this surprised a lot of people who were going into work, who were outside at the moment. I myself was outside on the way to report on another topic when I heard missiles and when I saw air defense in action over the capital. And that is a reminder that there's really nowhere safe here in Ukraine, and also that Russia continues daily to shell indiscriminately on civilian infrastructures. You've mentioned this children's hospital upon which debris of a missile that was downed by air defense fell. We do not have information at the moment as to casualties, as to whether or not people were injured there, but that is the daily danger, not only here in Kyiv, but also elsewhere in the country.
And that's our correspondent in Kyiv, Emmanuel Chaz, reporting. Well, finally, hip-hop is turning 50 years old. The musical genre can be traced back to a party in the Bronx in New York on August 11th, 1973, and an 18-year-old DJ who went by the name DJ Kool Herc. He began speaking over the beat of the music, reminiscent of the toasting style heard in Jamaica. It wasn't long before the style could be heard all over New York, and that made way for a range of artists, including the Sugar Hill Gang and Rapper's Delight, which took hip-hop mainstream in the 1980s and topped the Billboard charts. The genre would go on to take the world by storm. So happy birthday to hip-hop. And that's it for now. Stay tuned for more world news coming up here on France 24.
Hello, I'm Annette Young. In this special edition, we're here in the English city of Cambridge, which for many probably represents the very best of power, privilege and wealth. Yet it also happens to be Britain's most unequal city, with the divide between the haves and the have-nots becoming increasingly stark. This due to the cost of living crisis, not to mention Brexit, and it's women and children who are bearing the brunt.
For hundreds of years, this historic university city has been home to the very best minds in the country. And more recently, a magnet for high-tech firms such as Apple and AstraZeneca. But you don't have to drive far to uncover the devastating impact of a rapidly declining economy. It's going to be another busy day at Abbey Food Hub in eastern Cambridge.
I am just putting out some new toothbrushes and some toothpaste because there was a news article which said that the #1 cause of hospital admissions for children was actually due to tooth decay. A toothpaste like this would retail at £5, which for a lot of families is just too much.
Welcome to Britain in 2023. This food bank, like so many across the country, has seen an explosion in demand as the cost of living crisis bites hard.
The supermarkets are rationing a lot of the food because of all of the supply chain issues, so you can't buy more than 3 tins of tomatoes, for example, in one basket of shopping. So there's been lots of issues with HGV drivers, so the lorry drivers, because a lot of them come from European countries, so they're no longer wanting to come here. And then there's also a shortage of produce within the UK because of the energy costs. So you'll see here, we have no tomatoes, we have no cucumbers. We actually have quite a bit of salad veg today. We haven't had lettuce for weeks.
Okay, carrots.
According to data, food banks in the UK now outnumber McDonald's. And their clientele is so varied these days that even those who used to professionally help the disadvantaged are finding themselves in need, such as former social worker Lindsay O'Donnell.
I was helping people get the help and support they need beyond food poverty, and yeah, it's a lot worse. And now, you know, I'm in the same situation.
UK statistics show women are impacted the most in this crisis due to the gender pay gap, as well as holding 69% of low-paid and insecure jobs. Anna Galinsky is also a volunteer at this food bank. She recently separated from the father of her children and as a result took a massive financial hit. After paying all her bills, she only has around €60 left to live on each month. High rent in Cambridge means she now lives on a boat.
It was impossible to get regular housing. The rent in Cambridge is, you know, double what I could afford. You know, I might have been able to get a room in a shared house, but that would have been the most. And I was lucky I had a little bit of inheritance saved away, so that put down a deposit on the boat, and then I got a loan as well. So that was, yeah, buying a house would have been impossible, renting would have been impossible. I can't get on, there's no council houses, and I couldn't have got on the list for a council house.
A 2018 report by the Centre for Cities found the wealth in Cambridge is far more unevenly distributed among residents than in any other UK city, including Oxford and London. This due to it having a much greater share of highly paid, high-skilled jobs. We're at the Eakin Road Council Estate with Alex Boulat, a local councillor. Originally from Romania, the 26-year-old spends much of her time knocking on doors talking to locals about their increasing financial woes.
What's really interesting about this area is that when people think about Cambridge, we think about quite a wealthy area, and actually Abbey is one of the more deprived areas of Cambridge, and there's quite a lot of inequality. And for a lot of people, what's shocking to know is that the life expectancy here is about 10 years lower than some of the neighbouring areas in Cambridge City.
You must find this very depressing at times, I imagine.
I think it's a depressing state of affairs for everyone living in the UK at the moment, but honestly, myself, I don't find surprising what I hear, because I go through very similar situations like my residents do. I also worry about the cost of my energy bill that more than doubled compared to last year. So I think although it's very sad to think about the situation that we're living in, I think we need more people who actually go through those situations to be able to represent the interests of the community in the current state of politics.
With outrage over the lack of pay rises and cuts to public spending meant for the first time ever, UK doctors and nurses went out on strike. I went to meet Kelly McPhee, a senior nurse at Addenbrooke's Hospital, who decided to join them.
This is my smart meter, so it monitors all our electricity and our gas consumption. I don't think really before last summer I looked at it very often at all, but definitely the last sort of 2 or 3 months I've seen my bills increase horrendously. So last August my bills were about £120 a month, and now it's over £360. I definitely am more careful about what I go out and do. So if I'm going to go out to a restaurant or out for a day trip, I usually take a packed lunch, so I haven't got to buy any food when I go out. And I'll think about if I'm driving somewhere, how much is it going to cost in petrol? And I didn't really used to consider that on the cost of a day, but now if it's £40, say, for a ticket to go somewhere, then I've also got to think about the cost of how much it's going to cost to get there. And so it does stop you from doing certain things because you know that you can't actually fit that into your budget and afford it.
You have a 7-year-old daughter. How is she coping?
She is definitely very cost aware. So if, for example, I said we were going to go out and have, should we have fish and chips for tea? She'll quite often say, oh no, Mummy, we don't need to spend any money tonight. We'll just have something out of the freezer.
And the fact that doctors and nurses have gone out on strike, I mean, that's unheard of in Britain, isn't it?
It is. I've been a nurse since 2008 and we've never striked until now. And I think the impact of the pandemic and Brexit, people's resilience is just so much lower than it was before. And it's got to a point where we're seeing patients suffering and we need to do something to stop that.
With what you've been telling me, what does this say about the future of the UK?
It's a really difficult future to see as being a positive thing at the moment. It's there are things we're going to have to overcome in order to move forward, and there are definitely changes that need to happen.
And what are those?
I don't know. I wish I did.
A nation who hasn't witnessed widespread industrial action for many decades is now facing multiple crippling strikes. The aptly named Robin Hood pub in Cambridge is the location for local teachers who've walked off the job.
Second is we take some more action, okay, and we can carry on and announce any more dates.
And like the iconic folk heroes, some say here that it's time to rob the rich in order to give to the poor. They talk about how funding cuts has seen a growing number of state schools cancel extracurricular activities, while others are finding it hard to pay for school supplies.
Period of building the union.
My teacher's salary has stayed the same for the last 11 years. I've had no pay increase. I've had a tiny 1%, but it's so below inflation anyway. I have maybe £280 less a month than I had 10 years ago to spend because my salary's not gone up. Cost of living's gone up, my council tax has gone up, gas, electric's gone up, so I'm poorer and poorer as the months go by and the years go by. And I know teachers that go to food banks. They're working those sort of hours and they've got those bills going out and they're struggling.
The futures for our children is at a breaking point at the moment. I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism last year. It's 91% likely that my children will have it. Luckily for me and my daughter, we have had amazing teachers who are putting in the reasonable adjustments for my daughter every single day so that she can learn the best possible way she can. But we can't guarantee that we're going to have amazing teachers for the rest of her school life. The funding needs to be put in place to support our children with extra learning difficulties because it's not fair.
You braid your all together and spin your all together.
And then there's the issue of free meals for students.
School lunches are the only meal that many children have. So they're coming into school, they haven't got anything else. I mean, that's one of the things that the union's starting to fight for. We have children that should be getting free school meals, but the parents don't want to admit that they're in that situation. And so if free school meals were available for absolutely everybody, we wouldn't be putting anyone in that situation.
Getting food to the table is not just a worry for schools, it's become a major concern for the bulk of UK households. As a result, there's one growth market, the sale of gardening tools and plant seeds. Cambridge businesswoman Abigail Plett is among the hundreds of thousands in the country who grows her own food.
Basically, healthy food has become a luxury, and bad, unhealthy food is affordable. So it's just completely the wrong way round. Yeah, we have food shortages of the best and healthiest food, and that's one of the reasons we grow ourselves, because yeah, helping others to eat, to have this food. To go into the shops and see nothing was really sobering, because we're so reliant on doing nothing. There's no input from an individual to grow, to eat, I mean. You just go and you buy food, and we took that completely for granted. And then to have something not there, I think it was a wake-up call. And people need to know that if you want to survive and do, you know, you may as well learn. These are simple skills, and anyone can do it.
It seems the classic British saying, keep calm and carry on, no longer applies. Instead, many in Britain are uncharacteristically speaking openly and loudly about their financial woes. And the nation's politicians are very much being put on notice.
Your stories inspire the future. Your daily lives create the news. Your cultures, struggles and successes are at the heart of our programmes. We tell the stories of those who made our planet and those who are building it. We tell the story of the world, shaped by the lives of those who live there.
Liberté, égalité, actualité. The best of culture every day on France 24, with exclusive interviews with the most talked about people in entertainment. Encore's Eve Jackson and Olivia Salazar-Winspear bring you the latest from the world of art and entertainment. Our critics Marjorie Hash and Florence Villeminot speak to the biggest names in music, and Lisa Nesselson and Deeptika Laurent share the newest must-see films and TV series.
Join us every day for the latest from the world of arts and culture on Encore.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. World Steel Pan Day celebrations to take place today. 3 held for demanding money by menace. Port of Spain City Corporation worker murdered in Morpher. And internationally, search warrant issued for Donald Trump's Twitter account. Now for the details. The Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, in collaboration with Pan Trinbago, will commemorate the inaugural World Steel Pan Day on Friday. In noting the importance of this day, Minister of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, Randall Mitchell, said tomorrow and moving forward, the world will be invited into an annual celebration of the legacy, impact and captivating experience of the steel pan. Minister Mitchell also commended the contributions of stakeholder Pan Trinbago and the Steel Pan fraternity in forging the way forward. The theme chosen, From Behind the Bridge to the World Stage. The celebrations take place at the Woodford Square, Port of Spain today, Friday 11th from 5 p.m. 3 persons have appeared in court jointly charged with demanding money by menace from a Dabity man. 24-year-old Joel Patrick and 24-year-old Lorenzo Julian, both of Diego Martin and Cavian Alexis, 26 of Dabity, appeared before the Arima First Magistrates Court on August 8, 2023. Patrick was granted bail in the sum of $300,000 with surety. Julian pleaded guilty to the charge and was sentenced to 4 years hard labor, while Alexis was denied bail and remanded into custody. The matter was adjourned to September 5, 2023. A male victim reported to police on July 12, 2023, he allegedly received calls from a blocked number demanding that he pay the sum of $30,000 by the next day or some harm will come to him or his family. The following day, he allegedly received more calls demanding he pay the sum in 5 days' time. A report of the matter was made to the Arima Criminal Investigations Department, and a team conducted extensive investigation, which resulted in the apprehension of 3 suspects. The trio was charged by WPC Johnson, attached to the Arima CID. Port of Spain City Corporation worker murdered in Morva, bystander wounded by stray bullet. It was a bloody start to Thursday morning for residents of Morva, as a 35-year-old Port of Spain City Corporation worker was gunned down while walking to his vehicle. Marshall Charles was walking towards his white Hyundai H100 van at around 7:10 a.m. on Upper Romaine Lands when a silver Nissan Teda drove nearby. A masked man wearing a tactical camouflage jacket got out of the car with an assault rifle and shot Charles several times before getting back in the car and driving off. A bystander who was near the incident was shot on the left side of his lower abdomen. NEDTF officers visited the scene with Morva police. A district medical officer, Dr. Friday, visited the scene and made his pronouncements ordering Charles' body removed. Internationally, the U.S. Special Counsel investigating Donald Trump obtained a secret search warrant for the ex-president's Twitter data in January, unsealed records show. Jack Smith requested data and records relating to Trump's account, which may have included unpublished posts. After initially resisting the warrant, Twitter eventually complied, but missed a court-ordered deadline by 3 days. The delay resulted in the company being handed a $350,000 fine for contempt of court. The existence of the search warrant and the legal fight over it was revealed in court documents unsealed on Wednesday. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for watching.
This city can't hold me, my vibe's too high. And my heart, it told me, jump right now, you will touch the sky. Feel my love unfolding, like a laughing flame. All who did not know me when not done, they gon' know the name. Million people coming down, dancing to a song. Love is life and life is love, blessings from above. Can you feel the love that's in the air? Well, if you feel it, let me hear you say, dancing, moving everywhere. If you feel it, let me hear you say, na 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 na, eh na 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 na.
When I lost and can't find my way, is your love help me elevate? And when they try to block, I still come again. It's the way you lift me up, I could never give it up, no.
This is the way we celebrate independence. This is how it should be done. An event like this brings everybody out. All different race, creed, everything. This is our country. And how is the best way to celebrate our independence? With our national anthem. The vision I had 6 years ago, trying to make people happy. We started this event not to stop. This event must continue. And at independence, we could celebrate it together as a country. Even though the hard things, the struggles, we will always remain together as one people. Thank you.
You give me that energy. Can you feel this energy with a rhythm beating inside of my soul? This energy, you give me that energy. We feeling this energy with a rhythm beating inside our way.
Take me to the river, take me to the sea. Wash over me music, wash over me. Take me to the river, take me to the river. Wash over me music, wash over me.
WESN.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. In what appeared as a surprise to many, the Prime Minister recently turned the sword for the rebuilding of the Palo Seco Velodrome just months after a group of community activists announced a desire to breathe new life into what used to be a treasured facility for communities in that part of the southwestern peninsula. What was responsible for this relatively swift action, and what are the hopes of the people for a revival of sporting and cultural life in the areas involved? Ronald Prince is a leading community activist, and he was foremost among those in the community surrounding this and other endeavors in the area. He's agreed to be our guest on this edition of the program. Ronald, good to see you.
Good day, Andy. How you doing?
Very good, man. All right, so let me, before we get into the velodrome and stuff related there too, I just want to give me your sense, as somebody who moves around and deals with people on the ground, as it were, in our part of the country. What's life like, in your view, from your interactions with people? And I'm talking against the backdrop of the closure of Petrotrin and the trigger effect that would have had on other kinds of social and economic activity in that part of the country? What's life like for people?
Well, it is a change in that what people are accustomed to really is like, you know, they were dependent a lot on the companies, like whatever, in terms of jobs and contracts and whatnot. And even with the social responsibility, the company, I should say, in the predecessors, they spent a little more in the community, because I think there's a shift in, we all know that when the expats were here, they spent more on the community because they were taken from, so they thought that they had to give back a lot. But with the change, with the expat leaving, the whole thing changed in terms of everybody was more to themselves then. And as the ground will say, the white man treated the people better. But with that change, with the change in the oil company, the management change and whatnot, so the whole life started changing from then. So the dependency on the oil shifted when, of course, the oil prices dropped and whatnot. So you couldn't spend much more in terms of taking care of the community. So that dependency it still remained, but the company couldn't really afford doing what they used to do. So since then, it has been changing ever so often.
Yeah.
So with this shift in terms of heritage now, it even got worse in that you know the oil prices change, it varies. So that dependency still is with some people. And so I think we have to wake up now and say, listen, we had to stop depending and do our own.
So, okay, I'm not sure, you probably weren't around yet when it was called TPD. So then we moved from TPD to BP, then the Trinidad to Suro, and to Suro, then Petrotrin, and now Heritage. Yes. You think that over that period of time, the relationship between company and residents, in that part of the country, changed every time, such that you would say that under Heritage now, it's a far distance from what it may have been. Let's take in the days of BP, and then it came down to Trinidad to Suro and so on.
All right, the change came when the companies merged. With UBOT and BP and those, it was more central in terms of the area, the Palo Seco, Siparia area. It was central. So, and Point had Shell.
Yes.
Maribel had Texaco. So it was in that area. But when the companies merged, you got people from all over coming to the community. So it wasn't just our community involved now, it was the whole country. So we had to share what we normally not sharing to the whole country. So this is where it really changed.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to the project now. To me, it was a vast surprise, and positively so, when I saw the news that the Prime Minister was going to turn the sod for the Palo Seco Velodrome, because it's been left to languish for a number of years, and there are people who were complaining about it. I would get a call from Horace Hart every couple of weeks sometimes, moaning and lamenting about it. Talk about, so you and Jude Lejean and others held this parang event last Christmas, and you had said that was to begin the process to activize, if I may coin a term here, to get something going for the revival of that facility, the Palo Seco Sporting Ground, the Velodrome. And lo and behold, in months, the Prime Minister is announcing that he's going to turn the sod. Talk a little bit about the mechanics which led from last Christmas season to now. In a lot of people's imagination, that's a short space of time for that action to have been taken. What went right?
I think when he had the meeting at Palo Seco, that was probably that was more than 3 years ago. So since then, that is when I think Nicole Oliver was the MP at the time.
Yes.
Right. So that is like about almost 3 years ago. So it started then when he actually mandated, I think it's the Minister of Public Utilities, I think that's Robert Lee Hunt at the time.
Was, yes.
And Mr. Dillon, Nicole Oliver, and myself And we had 2 consultations with UDCOT. I think it was a holding company for Petrotrain, I think. Heritage was involved in that. So we had a sort of consultation as to what we should go with. So they took all the notes and whatnot, and they were supposed to come up with a plan as to what's going on at the velodrome. So the machinery started since then. So during that time, the place went down, because we always say our people are the ones who really mash it up. Yes, we wanted it, but there are guys who didn't have the same interest as us. So they stole all the galvanized, everything just kept going down. So in terms of doing anything there, we tried with the parang, because we were trying to not let people just come in and vandalize the place and whatnot. So we started having activities there to keep it going. But during that time, guys keep taking galvanized, so it just went down, so nothing happened there. So, but I think the machinery was already in place since about 3 years ago. But now, apparently, they came up with the blueprint, and it started now. And I think it was long overdue.
Yeah.
But I salute the Prime Minister in expediting that, because we need it so bad.
What has become of the clubhouse, where a lot of people, a lot of men in particular, spend their afternoons and the evenings, and certainly on weekends and so on? It was a home away from home for a lot of people. What has happened with that? And are there plans to revive that as well?
Yes, there are plans to revive that, and like the whole, we saw a part of the plan, actually, not the whole plan, but we saw a part of the plan where they want to bring back, I think there's a walking track around, because people started using the velodrome as a sort of exercise. And the older folks like Bertie Dickey and they used to come to the clubhouse, but the clubhouse now, they say they haven't demolished it as yet, because I think the structure is really good, but they demolished all these stands on the other side. So I think they want to use the structure there. And probably that's the only thing that will remain in terms of structure. But the other things came down. So the clubhouse itself, I think, is still there, because old iron is not like the iron nowadays. So the structure, it is so strong that they probably will just have to remove the board and whatnot, but the foundation is strong. So I think they're using that building. So that might be the only thing that we can hold on to in terms of nostalgia and the old time days. That might be only building, but the rest of the thing is actually new.
All right, so the sword has been turned. What do you know to be the steps to move forward on this project?
There are some challenges in that the front ground, what people always say that how this thing started. I don't know if you know the story behind it. I think that ground in front was actually was the public's ground, and UBOT at the time, they saw it fit that there must be some sporting activity in the area. So they started having little inter-department games and whatnot, and I understand they even had bicycle race and whatnot for the company officials. But then they realized that it wasn't their facility, so then the velodrome, well, not the velodrome, but the industry park,
what they call industry park,
and they started industry park. So there's where the Palisade Games actually started.
Yeah, and the front ground was a magnificent cricket ground, right?
Yes. So and that was, I think it was donated by some member of the community. So that wasn't owned by the company per se, but they maintained it. And there are still challenges in that. But talking to the contractor, he said they want to do that on a different stage.
So who are sort of the custodians for the front ground as we speak then now?
So we are trying to find out who are the real custodians for it, but I think there is no actually documentation for that, but it's like common understanding that was given, but it's not owned by the company, I think. So that in itself, well, I think was supposed to be government owned out, because there's no owner per se.
Yeah, and there was a period in which, I mean, so we grew up knowing that there were families one at a time who lived on the premises and who were sort of responsible for doing the kind of housekeeping, if you like, in the territory. At one point it was the Ledger Woods, and there were people after them. Is that anywhere in part of the plans to have that kind of arrangement going forward?
Actually, the bar person, the company had it that the bar person who taking care of the bar and probably like when goods has to come in, they needed somebody present. So they built a facility at the velodrome there,
yes,
so that the person can live and take in stock and take care of the place. So the groundsman and the bar personnel actually lived on the premises.
Right, and that's how it was.
That's how it was. But this time around, I think when asking the MP about it, they were saying that might be the Ministry of Sports, but Brian Williams, myself, Junior Ferguson, Dexter Francis, and Dexter Cyrus, we are trying to get a meeting with the MP to see that how best we can at least try to control the facility or have some management of the facility.
Yeah, and the names you call there, all of them are the current generation of sort of sport leaders. You talk about the guys you call there, they were like footballing stars in that part of it, right?
Yes.
So
we are trying to ensure that the facility is like what we want it to be. So we want to have some consultation, even though we had in the past, but we want to ensure that it's not just a facility that just put in the area and we didn't have any input in terms of the finished product.
Yeah, you mentioned the MP a while ago. How involved is he in it? In that
actually,
program?
I think he was instrumental in expediting it with the Prime Minister, because we had discussions and he's saying, listen, I have to go to the PM because we really need this down here. So I think he was actually part of them. Well, it looked like hustling, but in terms of expediting this whole thing, I think he was part of it.
Yeah. So what are the next steps? Is there a time frame when the work will be completed and the sort of revival of the facility will kick off and things will start to happen? Activity will
actually,
be
they give at the certain, they said 18 months. So within 18 months, they say that they will finish. So within that time, the group that we formed, and we formed an NGO with Brian Williams, myself, and Junior Ferguson. So actually we named it Palaseco Improvement Committee. So we actually got some. There's a percentage that you get when sporting guys like professionals go on the outside. So we actually got some from is Levi Garcia. So we have a fund in this NGO that once the velodrome comes on stream, you want to have like different football leagues and whatnot. Part of the cash that we got, we actually Edgar Vidal, we helped him with his medical. He had a medical problem sometimes, so we actually assisted Mr. Vidal in that. And thank God he's still around. He was there at the starting, and he's one of the guys who was instrumental in the velodrome building, because I think he went on a coaching course in Germany, and he actually brought back a blueprint for the velodrome. So I think Edgar Vidal is the one who really was instrumental in the velodrome building, together with Mr. J.P. Smalsh.
And just to put part of the history for those who don't know, Edgar Vidal was somebody who had come from town, to come down there to work, and got married to Alvin Cornelius' sister, and stayed the rest of his life there. And he was a national football coach along the way as well, right?
Yes, I think he was part of the coaching team that played Haiti with the infamous game against Haiti.
Yeah,
he was part of that. He was part of that team, I think.
Yeah, right. And you talk about Junior Ferguson, and again, we're talking legacy here, because he sort of is a current generation of the great Alwyn Ferguson, Rupert Ferguson, Joyce Ferguson, and others, right? And they were all sporting personalities from that part of the country.
So yes, and the foundation is still there, and he's still working very hard. I think at this time he's involved in the Southern Football Association. I think he has a post there. I think is one of the coordinators there on the I think it's the PRO of the Southern Football Association right now. So he's doing a lot of work still. The legacy lives on.
Yeah. And the names keep coming. So Bobby Sukram came from playing on that ground.
Yes. And you know what, Andy? You know what shifted in the whole scenario? When the company built the velodrome, not the velodrome, but when the company started the industry park, what used to really take care of that ground, the maintenance of the ground, each employee had to give, I think it was 12 cents towards the maintenance of the club. So the club was actually maintained by the employees of that company, of I think it was UBUT at the time, and then with Tessero.
After UBUT, well, it was TPD. And then
TPD,
so,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So 12 cents from each worker used to go towards the maintenance of the velodrome, or the club. So when that shifted, it shifted in that the company bore the burden alone. So when the companies merged, and then we had all these clubs coming to one company, they started giving subventions to each club. So each club had to get some money to manage this. So the company wasn't really taking care of the club 100%. They give you a subvention. So each club, like there were Palaseco Club, there was Point Fortin, there was Beach Camp Club, Penal Club, then there was a staff club in Faizabad. So there were like about 10 to 15 clubs that the company had to maintain, but they gave subvention. So it shifted.
Yeah.
So that was the main challenge, I think, in terms of the maintenance of the velodrome, because no longer was it 100% like maintenance from the company, but just a subvention. So it was left upon the management staff of the facility to have activities and whatnot, and that was a big challenge.
Yeah, so one imagines that, so you know whether Horace Hart, is he breathing easier these days? Is he,
I think he is. He was invited to the Saturn, but he's not too well these days, but he is happy because every day I meet Horace, he will ask about the velodrome. He used to drive down there, just drive down there every day and look at it every single day. Yeah. So I think he's breathing much easier now.
All right, so, okay, let's talk a little bit about the process going forward as to how do you all keep enthusiasm alive? And I can't help but, as we keep talking, names are coming to my mind. I'm thinking about that's where Trevor James used to run. That's where Michael Billy Montague used to do his long jumps and so on.
So it is a revival, I think, because we had a drain. Once that facility was closed, we have a legacy of athletes coming up from javelin, from high jump, from table tennis players, footballers, cricketers, hockey players. All these areas we produce national players. And within that time, when the facility went down, we had actually a drain of athletes. Nothing was coming from. Kenny still had to go by the primary school and the secondary school to do it, to coach his athletes. So with this facility coming on board, I think there will be a resurgence of sports and national players, national figures coming out from Palaseco and the Southland.
And in our village, Los Bajo, because we produced a lot. I mean, Yvonne Mitchell and Joycelyn Haynes, my cousin, I mean...
Yes, and all from the club.
Yes, precisely. That's the point I'm making. So we're looking at a kind of revival of the kind of activity and, again, the kind of talent that was produced from that part of the country.
I think so. And you know, even when the velodrome was operational, you know, you still had guys from Los Bajo. I remember there was a Los Bajo team, a basketball team, and actually they used to play right in the back street, Andy, and they didn't have a whole court, but they still used the half court and won competitions in whole courts. You know, so that continued. So I think with the velodrome building back now, everybody's enthusiastic where we have somewhere to go now. We have somewhere to go, some place that will be, I think, will be of international standard. And once there's any facility in an area with international standard, I think you will produce international athletes.
Yeah. So you would say that in many respects, your work and Jude's work and the rest of people on your team is sort of in full bloom now, and you're seeing a way forward to revive prospects in the area.
Yes, we are seeing a way forward, and each day you pass and you're looking at it and you're seeing work is being done. Like, we just can't wait for this facility to finish to really start back the whole process. And already we are mobilizing guys like Brian Williams, Junior Ferguson, and myself. We are already having discussions as to how we will go about in managing that facility, because we don't want anybody from the outside to just come and just manage the facility. We are the ones who know what we need down here. So we actually forming committees to, as when it starts, we want to start at the same time. As a matter of fact, we want to start before. So when it's done, we will just roll into action.
To what extent you know of some of the projects being done otherwise, various locations in the government to do things in that part of the country? So there's some activity happening in Beach Camp, which will sort of revive life there, and there's activity happening in Chatham and so on. To what extent that is resonating among youngsters in our piece of that neck of the woods?
Well, in Beach Camp is resonating in that there's already activity with this guy Dennis Cox. He has a coaching school in there, and I think that and Michelle Celestine, she's actually involved in it also. And we have a committee to revive the Beach Camp facility, and Foster Cummins, he's instrumental in that also. So Cox has a football team in there. So they piggybacked on that, and they're going to have a sort of a youth camp where youth can come in and different sporting disciplines and different areas. I think they including farming into it also. So it already started. Cox has, I think they came back from Barcelona like about a couple months ago. So the activities that's happening in there. So the more they occupy the area and they don't run down, you're getting the enthusiasm of doing things in there. So I think Foster is doing a good job in that. So we are waiting. I think they were saying that they had to refurbish a couple bungalows. They started on one, and I don't know how, in terms of the time frame as to finish that facility, but I know it's in the pipeline.
Yeah, it's a specialized kind of agricultural development program that is happening, part of it.
And what I like about it is the youths are going to be involved. I think they're looking to do the NESC building also. There's a guy, Anthony Alexander. He is enthusiastic about even helping out, and he's one of the welders in the area. You know Perro, you remember Perro?
Not sure.
He's Alexander from one of Alexander's settlement. His father was a contractor in the company at one point in time.
Yeah, in Santa Flora, yeah.
Yes. So he has a company, and he is willing to coach, teach welding at the NESC. So right now he's in discussion with Foster Cummins also as to use the NESC building in a sort of at evenings, a sort of homework center, and during the day, like teaching welding and different trades. Yeah. So things are happening.
Yeah, and you think to what extent that balances off the sense of gloom, if not doom, with the closure of the company and the activism by people who were part of the union? Well, I mean, recently was there an effort to well, I think this the last couple of days, the Prime Minister announced that some of the former employees get houses or land to build houses on. Are people there sharing in that?
I think so. I think more so the guys who the casual workers, they stand to benefit from it more because they didn't really get anything for the closure. So I think there was some distribution took place. I don't know as to how that went, but I know that some guys say they were called in to sign up something to parcels of land and whatnot. So I really don't know much about that part of it.
Yeah. So with you and Jude and your committee then, you're planning another?
Yes, we intend to have another. Well, I had to be at Unique Hall in Santa Flora because of the work being done at the velodrome.
Yes.
So we still want to keep that going because it's within the area. So we still want to keep those activities going. Also with Junior Ferguson and myself, we want to have a little in league at Santa Flora area. So we want to activities. So when this actually starts, we want to just move in.
Yeah. When you say in Santa Flora, you're talking about places like Subnight Park and so on?
Yes, Subnight Park, yes. And I think that they just fixed the lights there. And so guys like playing, just like we can go on there at March there, I think. So I think the area is sort of buzzing at this point in time.
Yeah. What gives you the kind of continuing optimism about the area, such that you are so heavily involved in projects of this sort? What is it?
I think in playing sport, you realize that sport is so important, and you meet different people, and that gives me a drive. You know, I like people, I like meeting people, and that gives me a drive. And traveling, you realize, you know, we have a system here that our sports and our sportsmen, we get so much from it. And when traveling, you realize that out there is much different to here. And the more you put into your community, I realize, is the more you get out of the youth. In America, I coach every year in the States, and they actually have programs ongoing, and I am such a part of that. And I realize, you know, this, you must put in your community, because they put in their community. And if you don't put in, nothing will happen. So I'm trying my best to encourage others to come forward. And it's such a joy to see when people are happy. You know, it's such a joy. So I think that's my driving force, to see people happy, especially children and youths, to see them happy and enjoying life. And I think sports, they say if you wanna lessen on the amount of jail time, you build more sporting grounds.
And this
so
is just, yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
You said you
so
are.
Pardon?
You said you were going to say I am in something. Finish it.
Yeah. So I am. That's my drive now, to really push the youth forward, let them come out, enjoy themselves. And as I was telling some youth, now it is so different. In our time, we wouldn't have gotten any contracts in the US or in Canada or whatnot. But now there's an opportunity out there for, if you play third division in England, you're a millionaire in Trinidad. So I keep telling young guys, listen, sports is the way to go. Get your academics in order, because a lot of times some of our athletes fell on the wayside because you might get a scholarship and then your SAT is not good, so you might just fall apart, fall on the wayside. So I encourage guys, education is important. Make sure, even though you're a good sportsman, make sure you have some sort of educational background. So which is important. It's not just the sport, but it's academics also.
Yes, sir. And this is just one small means by which we want to spread the message and help you on the agenda that you're moving forward. But thank you very much, Ronald Prince, activist par excellence.
Thank you.
This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
WESN.
I am Sule A. Joseph, and we are WESN, Content Capital.
August 14th, local government election night returns. Understand what's happening in your community. WESN presents our special election coverage with a panel of trusted citizens and context you will not get elsewhere. Special coverage begins from 7 p.m. on the premier platform for Caribbean content, WESN.
My name is Carl Media, and the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this